Hello everyone. This is a short video going over 3 poems. Those 3 poems are We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks, The Summer I Was 16 by Geraldine Connolly, and A Spiral Notebook by Ted Kooser. These are all under the Innocence and Experience module in D2L. So to find them, to link to them, you would go into the reading link. You go to the reading links module, Innocence and Experience. And then you can see here there's a spiral notebook, The Summer I Was 16, and We Real Cool is down at the bottom. It's the last one. So what I'm going to do in this video is go quickly through all 3 of these poems, point out to you anything that will be useful to know for the first exam, but also just work through the poems in case you decide to write about any of them on the first exam. I'm going to start with the shortest poem, We Real Cool by Gwendolyn Brooks. The reason that I put these 3 poems together and picked them to do in this video together is because these 3 poems all have in common this sort of what it's like to be young and what it's like to be this certain age. Especially We Real Cool and The Summer I Was 16 both have to do with being adolescent teenager and how your mind works and what you think and how you see the world, and there is this still sort of innocence to a lot of people at that age, but there's also this sort of testing boundaries and thinking about what's beyond the fence, or what's going on at school the day you skip school. A Spiral Notebook has that same idea too, because it is devoted to the idea that at a certain age you have a notebook with a bunch of different stuff. You could have a big notebook with a bunch of different subjects in it, but as you get older, you many of the other subjects fall away and you get focused on something. You major in something in college, you only become an expert in one thing, when for much of your career in grammar school, middle school, high school, you take a bunch of different subjects and think about a bunch of different subjects during the day. We're going to start with We Real Cool though, which is a poem about skipping school. This is about these 7 kids who are hanging out at this pool hall. They've skipped school for the day. They've stayed out. They skipped school that day and they stayed out late. And it's about the kind of, how you feel when you're maybe in like middle school or high school and you skip school, and when you're that age it feels super dangerous. You're like, oh, I'm so rebellious, I'm out skipping school, I'm out being bad. It's about what being bad looks like when you're younger, like when you're a teenager. And you're like, oh, I'm so rebellious, I'm so bad. We Real Cool, you see the pool players 7 at the Golden Shovel. This pool hall is called the Golden Shovel for whatever reason. Bars, clubs, places like that have all kinds of crazy names. This one's called the Golden Shovel. Like a lot of Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, this poem is probably set in the city of Chicago. That doesn't really matter to this poem though. We Real Cool, you're young, you're a teenager, you're like, oh, I'm so cool. We left school, skip school. We lurk late, we stay out a little too late, we're out past curfew, we're out being bad. We strike straight. That has to do with them playing pool and them shooting the pool ball straight. They strike the ball straight with the cues. We sing sin. They're like singing dirty songs, listening to dirty music, something like that. There's always been like dirty, suggestive music all the way from rock and roll in the 1950s to like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion now. So we thin gin. They're drinking gin, they're thinning the bottle out. The bottle's getting lower, they're thinning it out. They're out drinking alcohol. We jazz June. It's like warm, it's summer month. They're out listening to music. Gwendolyn Brooks would tell you that some people read that and think that means that they're out having sex or something like that, but she never meant that. She just meant them out like jazz in the sort of original 1940s, 1950s. We're out being cool sense. And then we die soon. One of the common things, students even sometimes say this when I talk to them, when you're young, you can't imagine being older. You can't imagine, when you're 16, you can't imagine being 26 or 36 or God forbid 46 and not being cool and turning into your parents and, settling down and having a kid or having a house or something like that. And so the way that a lot of people read this line is this like, I'd rather die young and stay cool forever. than, you know, get old and settle down and get old and boring and something like that. But that's not practically true. A lot of people, when you're young, you just can't imagine what it'll be like when you're old, or how you'll be, or you can't, especially in the context of this poem, you can't imagine ever being older and not cool in the way that you're cool in this moment, skipping school and hanging out with your friends and playing pool and drinking and that kind of stuff. You can't imagine ever not being that cool person, who you are in that moment in your mindset. So this is a poem about being young and feeling a certain way that you feel when you're that age, and rebelling and rebellious. The Summer I Was 16 has some of that same energy, some of that same environment, some of those same vibes. It's about being a 16-year-old girl at the local swimming pool, and how you feel sort of safe in this fenced-in pool, but you know the big world, which is often dangerous for women, especially young women, in a bunch of ways, where people will take advantage of you, or older guy. You know, there's all these dangers for young women that they have to worry about, or at the very least, if they're not worried about it, they have to be aware of. And so part of what's happening in this pool is there is so much beauty. It's this beautiful day, they're at the pool, but they know that the dangerous world is just outside the fence, literally and metaphorically. The turquoise pool rose up to meet us. Its slide a silver afterthought down which we plunged, screaming into a mirage of bubbles. We did not exist beyond the gaze of a boy. And so you get this wonderful, happy scene where they're at the pool and they're going down the slide, and the boys are checking them out, and they're like, oh, this is great, everything's wonderful, perfect day. Shaking water off our limbs, we lifted up from ladder rungs across the fern cool lip of rim. Afternoon, oiled and sated. So they got their swimming, they got their suntan oil, their suntan lotion on. We sunbathed, rose and paraded the concrete, danced to the low beat of Duke of Earl. This is a poem about somebody that grew up in the 1950s, 1960s. If you don't know that song, it's a pop song from the early 1960s. Past cherry colas, hot dogs, dreamsicles, you know, the kind of stuff you when you're a teenager and you don't have to worry about gaining weight. You're like, oh, it's all good. We came to the counter where bees staggered into root beer cups and drowned. If you've ever been to like a public pool, or even like Whitewater or something like that, you know that like at all those food stands, there's a bunch of bees around because there's all that sugar. We gobble cotton candy torches, sweetest furtive kisses, shared on benches beneath summer shadows. So again, it's like you're having these sort of happy first interactions. Cherry, elm, sycamore. We spread our chenille blankets across grass, press radios to our ears, mouthing the old words. The kind of things you do when you're a teenager. You know, you spread, especially in the 1950s, 1960s, when this person grew up, you like spread a blanket out at the swimming pool. You're listening to music. You're in the shade of the tree because it's hot. Then loosen thin bikini straps and love baby oil with iodine across sunburned shoulders. So again, they're like, everything is safe. They're being, as risque as like, ooh, I'm going to take my bathing suit straps off. Tossing a glance through the chain link at an improbable world. So this is about being a teenager and feeling safe, in this case at a swimming pool, and not thinking about the dangerous world that's out there and all the bad things that might happen, but also all the responsibilities that you're going to have in a few years when you become an adult. The summer you're 16, you're still, you have all this freedom to do a bunch of things. You have a bunch of adult freedoms, but the sort of weight of responsibilities hasn't really set in on you yet. Especially, like you guys are right now, the weight of college and the responsibility of college and things like that. This is very much about being 16 and having this sort of mindset. And the world is out there, but it's still pretty far away. And you've got this safe space where you're like just being this sort of happy, carefree teenager. This summer I was 16. And then the last of these three poems, A Spiral Notebook by Ted Kooser. Oop, here we go. See if I can, this doesn't want to make me let it get bigger here. Let's see if we can try to make this one bigger. There we go. Like I said, this poem is about when you're young, when you're in middle school, high school, and you take all these different subjects at school. At school, your world is wide, and there's a bunch of stuff you learn: math and social studies and history and English and stuff like that, chemistry. And part of growing older is those extra subjects fall away, and you sort of just focus on one thing. And so this person sees a notebook at the store, a spiral notebook. Y'all know these notebooks, they got that metal spiral running through one side. And thinking about how life used to be bigger and more full of different subjects. The bright wire rolls like a porpoise in and out of the calm blue sea of the cover, or perhaps like a sleeper twisting in and out of his dreams. For it could hold a record of dreams if you wanted to buy it for that, though it seems to be meant for more serious work. Serious work like going to high school or going to college, with its college rule lines and its cover that states in emphatic white letters, 5 subject notebooks. So 5 subjects, it's got those little dividers in it. You could do 5 classes worth of studying and notes in it. It seems apart, and this is where the poem really hits you with what it's about. It gives you this sort of idea, the theme, if you want to call it that. It seems a part of growing old is no longer to have 5 subjects, each demanding an equal share of attention, set apart by brown cardboard dividers, but instead to stand in a drugstore and hang on to one subject a little too long. And so part of what happens as you grow older is that diversity of subjects sort of falls away, and you have to decide what you're going to major in, or you have to pick a career in one field when you go to work. And all of the subjects and all of that knowledge and all that diversity falls away, and you just become a chemistry major or a nursing major, or then you go into the adult world and you become a plumber or a nurse or a tech analyst or something like that. You hang on to one subject a little too long, like this notebook you weigh in your hands, passing your fingers over its surfaces as if it were some kind of wonder. And so part of the diversity of subjects is this wonder at all the knowledge and the different things you could know in the world. And that sort of, especially if you're not careful, that sort of wonder at all the different things you could know and the different subjects in the world, that can sort of fall away as you get older and you just sort of focus in on your one subject. So this is just about a person looking at a notebook and remembering, I used to be this kind of person who was interested in all these different things and every day learned about all these different kinds of things. And as you get older, you sort of narrow in on something and focus in on something and lose that kind of wonder at the big world. Hopefully that helps you understand these 3 poems. Like I said, there is this thread that holds them all together. It's about being in this sort of youthful mindset when you're a teenager and adolescent, something like that. If you've got questions about any of these 3 poems, just be in touch. And otherwise, like I said, I hope this is useful for you in understanding them, and especially understanding them in the context of innocence and experience. Thanks.